We continue with our Discernment of Spirits Mondays, and we've said multiple times how there's kind of 3 steps to discernment of spirits. First is becoming aware, just something is happening within me, then understanding what is happening within me, and then taking action. And so we finished covering Rule 5 last week, and Rule 5, we titled it, right, Spiritual Desolation, a Time for Fidelity. And we can see kind of these 3 steps, right? We become aware something's happening within me. Then we understand, hey, I'm in spiritual desolation. And then we take action. If you remember, the action of Rule 5 is do not make a change, right? Fidelity. Remain in your spiritual practices. Do not change them. Do not, take them away because your judgment is clouded because you're in spiritual desolation. So that was Rule 5. And so let's move on to Rule 6, which is also about spiritual desolation. If we were to give it a title, we would say Spiritual Desolation, a time for initiative. Spiritual desolation, a time for initiative. And so let me read you Rule 6. Sixth rule, the 6th. Although in desolation, we should not change our first proposals, it is very advantageous to change ourselves intensely against the desolation itself, as by insisting more upon prayer, meditation, upon much examination, and upon extending ourselves in some suitable way of doing penance. So at the beginning of the rule, it says that, it kind of makes a reference to Rule 5, right? It says, although in desolation we should not change our first proposals, i.e., right, the previous rule, Rule 5, it is very advantageous to change ourselves intensely against the desolation itself. Kind of saying there's a way to fight against it, right? I kind of mentioned the example before, how there could be this danger of saying, oh, well, I'm in desolation, I can't do anything about it, just gotta write it out. And that's not what we do when we're physically sick. We take medicine, we try to get better. Of course, we can't fully control it. You cannot simply just say, oh, I do X and desolation will disappear. No, things are outside of our control, but we try to fight against it. Just like we fight physical illness, we fight the spiritual malaise or desolation, right? And so St. Ignatius gives 4 ways, right, to have initiative, 4 ways of fighting, right, in this rule. Prayer, meditation, much examination, and penance. And so today I'll just talk about the first 2, and then next time I'll talk about the other 2. And so the first thing, prayer, it seems here that he's particularly referring to just petitionary prayer. And so if one is experiencing desolation, one can ask the Lord. That's the way to fight against it. Lord, help me. Be with me. I need you. Take this away. Help me to see the truth of your presence, even though I don't feel it. Help me. Again, just asking the Lord to help us. It's kind of very, it makes a lot of sense that we would do that and that He can answer that prayer, and that it is advantageous for us to ask Him to take us out of desolation. The second thing that St. Ignatius suggests is meditation. And we could speak about meditation just in general, but it seems like here that he's referring to a specific type of meditation that's going to help us fight spiritual desolation. So usually it will have to do with meditation on kind of God's fidelity in the midst of distress, God's love, God's presence in the midst of hardship, etc. And so maybe an example, we could think of a woman whose name maybe is Alice. And this woman is very involved in her parish, is very loved in her community. She's been there for 10 years. She also contributes a lot, and she loves her parish, and it's just a place where she's just fed, where she's growing, where she serves the Lord. And then after 10 years of being there, she actually has to move to a different city, and so she moves to a different city. And in the city, she tries to find a new parish, and so she it takes a little bit for her to kind of start getting into this parish, and a few months go by, and she still doesn't feel at home. She's trying to get involved with some ministries, and just there's some frictions with people there, and she doesn't feel like this is really her spiritual home, and it's been a year, and she's a lot of frustration that really it's just not the same as her last parish. And she had sensed that the Lord is asking her to be there, but still there's frustration, and this has led to maybe, this sense of God feeling far away. And so she is in spiritual desolation, right? Now, as she finds herself in this spiritual desolation after a year of being there, she picks up her Bible and opens the book of Psalms to Psalm 23. And so she reads the following: "The Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall want." And she begins to repeat this over and over again. "The Lord is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall want." And as she reads this multiple times, her eyes are filled with tears, and there's a sense of light coming into her heart. And she closes her Bible, and there's this new sense of hope that even in the midst of having been a very difficult year of transition and still not feeling fully at home at her new parish, that the Lord really is with her. And kind of this sense of desolation maybe begins to withdraw a little bit, or at least there's new strength found in the midst of this darkness she's been experiencing. So we see that she's meditating with Scripture, but specifically she's meditating in the sense of the Lord's fidelity with Psalm 23, which kind of is fighting directly against the reality of desolation, which kind of, desolation has this lie of God is not faithful, God is not present, right? So she fights by meditating upon the truth of the Lord's presence. And this helps her fight and actually receive some light in the midst of her darkness. Something similar could be done not only reflecting upon Scripture, but also maybe just reflecting upon our life, how the Lord has come through in hard times and how He never left us. So kind of meditating upon that in our own history, story with the Lord, can help us also kind of fight. So the first two ways in which St. Ignatius suggests in Rule 6 that we fight back: prayer and meditation, and we'll talk about the other two, examination and penance, next time.